Hello everybody, we are back for another review, a little tumble down the rabbit hole as we discuss books, my loves, my horrors, my fantasies. Sounds like the beginning of an erotica, but we're going to move along because we're going to talk about a children's novel or a young adult, depending on how you want to classify this. I had already made a video talking about the first Harry Potter book and my love-hate relationship with it, and I wanted to discuss the second book of the series, Chamber of Secrets. This fancy 20-year sticker right here. I don't know if I'm going to take that off. This is a pretty cool cover. Pretty cool. I still miss my old one, the original. El Original. But this one is good enough to discuss what we need to discuss, and that is the many issues in the Harry Potter series. Now, before I start, I want everyone to know that I love Harry Potter. I still read the whole series generally once or twice a year, and that is probably what has made me one of the most judgmental people about the series, because I have been doing this since the first book came out. I have literally reread the whole series, generally at least twice a year, sometimes more. I'm slightly obsessed with the series. It has been my comfort food ever since I was a wee little baby, a wee Jason, as I like to say sometimes. And I got some problems, folks. I got some serious problems. And the reason why is because if I look at this series now, and I think about someone new coming into it, someone in their teens or in young adulthood or even older, coming into this series, they're going to have some real struggles with the first novel. But the first novel at least sort of made sense. Some of the things were acceptable to a degree in the ridiculousness of them. How ridiculous it was, these adults just allowing these kids to do some of these things and just not being focused enough, caring enough to actually bother. I mean, for anyone who's read the first novel, the Philosopher's Stone was being protected by the school, but the way it was being protected was just utterly ridiculous. And the fact that the kids could just waltz in there at any moment, not very logical. Especially when you find out Dumbledore pretty much kind of knew to a degree. And that is one of the major issues with the Chamber of Secrets, is that yet again, and this is a theme throughout all the books, Dumbledore is one of the most redundant, useless people I've ever met. People love Dumbledore. They love him. They think he's fantastic. I think he's such a piece of shit. His logic, even when you get to know his background, which is very sad, and you understand his mentality and that he believes in people just really building themselves up, when you really start to understand, especially in the later novels, what Dumbledore knows or suspects about what Harry is going to have to do, the things he's going to have to go through, Dumbledore is useless. He should have been preparing Harry already at a younger age for the things and trials that he would have to go through later on. And he just does not. People make Dumbledore out to be this brilliant genius who's so powerful, and that's why no one could ever harm someone at his school. Yet things always happen at his school. Why? Because Dumbledore doesn't really seem to do anything. He's this side character who's randomly in his office and never takes part. It's only in the 5th and 6th novel that he starts to do something to a degree, only because Voldemort has returned. For those of you who have not read the series, don't know who Voldemort is, he is the primary antagonist of the series, evil sorcerer supreme and weirdly faced Snake Man. That being said, again, Dumbledore is frustrating. He's one of the main frustrating pieces of this book series, because as children and teachers are being attacked, Dumbledore still doesn't seem to be doing much of anything. Yet Harry is capable of figuring all this stuff out. Now, for those of you who don't want to hear spoilers, cover your ears right now, but within this book, Harry becomes a Parselmouth. He is someone who can speak to snakes, and this is what allows him to eventually figure out where the hiding hole of the main enemy within this novel is. That being said, Hermione figures it out just from listening to some noises in the pipes and reading a book. So Dumbledore is supposed to be a genius, and you have all these amazing teachers. Nobody can figure this stuff out, but Hermione figures it out within a couple of days just because she hears a noise. Now, I know Hermione is supposed to be very smart, but come on. Come on. And yet again, Hermione, Ron, Harry get into these ridiculous scenarios, ridiculous situations that nobody else is figuring out. I also think that the magic system, for those who love Dobby, I'm sorry, I enjoy Dobby as a character. He's amusing, he's super funny. But the fact that Harry almost loses his part, his place, at the school because of what Dobby did, it just goes to show that the magic system is really, really too vague. So they have the ability to track when a young person is using magic, but they can't tell who did the magic. You know, it just doesn't really make sense. Why would Harry float a cake and like lose his part of the school? So many frustrations within this book. That being said, it is still a very fun novel. It's very fun. That's the main part of why I continuously reread the series, even though there's so many frustrating pieces of the series that simply make no sense, that there's so much lack of good adults in this series. There doesn't seem to be any proper mentor for someone like Harry, because everyone is useless in this series. Hence why Harry needs to freaking save everybody all the time, because all the adults somehow manage to never get anything done. They just don't. And yet the series is fun. It is got great character development. You really see Harry, Ron, and Hermione develop in a fantastic way. Ron is definitely a pain in the ass, but Hermione is awesome possum, and she becomes more awesome possum as the series go by. And Harry is really a driving force behind it all. His ability to just focus in on what needs to be done and going through with it, even when he's going through these awkward youth phases and teenagehood and trying to figure things out. Harry is a fascinating case of someone who simply does what needs to be done. It's not necessarily a good versus evil kind of thing. It's just he looks at things, he understands what he needs to do according to his beliefs, and he does them. So Harry is a great character. Hermione is phenomenal. Ron is good for what he's there for. And the side characters manage to get developed in a good way. I mean, Neville is always fantastic in his own way, even though he's being trashed around so much, but he's impressive, especially when you learn about his background. But the Chamber of Secrets is really problematic as a series. I don't know. I cannot respect the teachers in any way, shape, or form. Like even Lockhart's. I think probably Lockhart is one of my most frustrating parts. The fact that he got hired is ridiculous to teach the subject that he's supposed to teach. With the amount of kids who would have said all the disasters of his classrooms. There's no way Dumbledore would have been fooled by this guy, yet he was hired. And he's allowed to stay in the school. And all the teachers know he's a fraud, and yet he's allowed to stay there teaching defense against the dark arts, one of the most important subjects there is. And he's allowed to stay there. Yet again, within the concept of the series, because it's more of a young adult child book, this is allowed to go on. But when you really just look at it from even as a teenager, I remember reading this and going, why would this ever have been allowed? If I was an adult and one of my kids told me how Lockhart's classes were going, I would immediately be bashing the school to get him fired. Yet this doesn't seem to happen. So the mix mash with Dobby, the ridiculousness of Lockhart, the fact that none of the teachers or Dumbledore takes any part in the important events happening in the school, that the kids are just allowed basically free reign and constantly are allowed to do these things. It is utterly ridiculous. It makes for a good story because the kids obviously are allowed this free reign so they can get stuff done. But when you just look at it from any rational standpoint, the book is super frustrating. And this continuously happens. It's only once you start getting to about the fourth novel that things start to make more sense. There's less of this irrationality, much more of this sense of like the adults actually paying attention, which is ridiculous even more, obviously, because it's once Harry and Ron and Hermione actually start getting to an age where it sort of makes sense, where they can handle some of this stuff because they're older teens. But yeah, when they were 11, 12, 13 years old, they're just allowed to do things to a degree that just no sane adult would ever make a child do, because the adult should be able to do it way better, way faster. Dumbledore is so skilled and so powerful. Through the first 3 books, he should have been able to like bulldoze through almost all of these problems. And the logic of like trying to make Harry be ready for it would have been much better accomplished by just taking Harry under his wing and mentoring him and actually helping him to become powerful enough to deal with Voldemort. These are the problems with looking at these kinds of novels as an adult. It is a struggle to give it the leeway that it needs due to it being a young adult novel, but it's difficult. It's difficult, my young Padawans. We need to give leeway where it should not be given. Look how cute Dobby looks. I think we have the same nose. Give that profile. No? It's close enough. I'm done ranting, people. I think I can only bash the book so much. But just so I can reiterate this fact, I love this series. I love this book. I enjoy it so much, but it does tend to be the book that I speed read through the most because it just has the most issues out of the entire series. Extremely frustrating. But the next book is awesome. We will get to it soon. If you want to let me know your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions about my complaints, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, check out the website, GeeksnBarbells.com, where I post videos. I do write, even though I have been on a slight hiatus in terms of my own writings. I've been mainly focusing on wanting to dive heat here in El Quebeco, where the humidity is pretty damn hot. And yet in Asia where I was, it was worse, but it feels worse here because it feels unnatural, if that makes any sense. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts. Adios.